Today we'll be taking a comparative look at two of the most popular Texas no-limit hold'em solvers on the market, PioSOLVER and Simple PostFlop. So if you are looking to improve your game by exploring the world of GTO but are on the fence about which solver to get, this video is for you. We'll be reviewing these solvers along 4 categories. 1. Pricing and features, 2. Performance, 3. User interface, and 4. Support. So there's one version of Simple PostFlop which costs $299 and 3 different versions of PioSOLVER. PioSOLVER Basic, which is $249, PioSOLVER Pro, which is $475, and PioSOLVER Edge, which tops out at $1,099. All of these programs have the same core feature, which is to solve the game of heads-up no-limit Texas Hold'em, and none of them solve multi-way. In terms of licenses, each of these products provide for 2 separate licenses other than PioSOLVER Basic, which only provides 1. The speed at which these programs solve hands is highly dependent on CPU power, so the number of threads the solvers can utilize can be extremely important. In theory at least, Simple PostFlop and PioSOLVER Edge can both utilize unlimited threads, while PioSOLVER Basic can use up to 6 threads and PioSOLVER Pro can use up to 16 threads. All of these programs have a node locking feature which allows you to explore exploitative play. Essentially, this feature gives you the ability to force your opponent to utilize a non-GTO strategy, and the solver will then give you the optimal way to play against that opponent. All of these programs also provide aggregated reports, which gives the user the ability to analyze strategies for the same decision tree across different boards, and all of the programs also support ICM for tournaments. All of the programs other than PioSOLVER Basic provide for scripting, which essentially allows you to automate the process for solving many different scenarios in batches. Only Simple PostFlop and PioSOLVER Edge provide for heads-up pre-flop solving. And lastly, although separate products, I should mention that as part of its ecosystem, Simple Poker also has a number of other useful tools for sale, such as a PLO solver, a multi-way pre-flop solver, a GTO trainer, and various solve solutions, whereas PioSOLVER only has a separate PLO solver. So taking all of that into account, I think when we compare the price to feature ratio, there is a clear winner here, which is Simple PostFlop, since it basically has the same functionality as PioSOLVER Edge but at a much lower price. To compare performance, we're going to examine 3 metrics: speed, accuracy, and memory compression. Before we begin, I should note that this analysis will not be scientific at all and is based on my anecdotal experiences with the solvers and a small sample size of tests, so it should not be viewed as definitive. Also, I'm using a 32-core AMD processor with 64 GB of RAM, so results may vary depending on your particular machine. And finally, for these tests, I'll be running the sims using Simple PostFlop and PioSOLVER Edge, so this will be a bit of an apples to oranges comparison. With those caveats in mind, for the speed test, we'll be running solutions for 3 types of trees: small, medium, and large. To my knowledge, PioSOLVER utilizes 1 core solving algorithm, whereas Simple PostFlop has 3 core algorithms: A1, which is designed to be used for larger trees, A2, which provides for the greatest accuracy, and A3, which provides for the greatest speed. For these tests, I'll be using Simple PostFlop's A3 algorithm for the small and medium trees and the A1 algorithm for the large tree test. So for the small tree, I used 6 max 100 big blind ranges, cutoff versus small blind in a 3-bet pot. We have set the SPR at 7, and there are 3 betting and 1 raise size options on each street. Using these inputs, Pio solved this sim to an accuracy of 0.034 in 4 minutes and 14 seconds, and Simple PostFlop was a bit faster, needing only 2 minutes 56 seconds to solve the sim to an accuracy of 0.033. For the medium-sized sim, we also used 6 max 100 big blind ranges, but for this scenario, the setup was hijack versus big blind in a single raise pot. We chose an SPR for this sim a bit higher at 10, and we used 4 bet sizes and 1 raise size for each street. PioSolver was able to compute its solution with an accuracy of 0.032 in 14 minutes and 7 seconds, and Simple PostFlop again was a bit faster, taking 11 minutes and 2 seconds to solve the sim with an accuracy of 0.034. And finally, for the large size tree, we used 8 max 100 big blind button versus big blind ranges with an ante in a single raised pot. For this scenario, we chose an SPR of 30 and 3-bet and 1 raise sizes for each street. Additionally, since for larger trees, these solvers tend to have certain random lagging points as you get closer to the equilibrium, which may skew results, I set the accuracy threshold for this sim at 0.1. PioSolver was able to compute the solution with an accuracy of 0.071 in 19 minutes and 54 seconds, and Simple PostFlop solved the sim with an accuracy of 0.083 in 24 minutes and 34 seconds. And these results are consistent with my personal experiences with these solvers thus far. Simple PostFlop, when using the A3 algorithm, tends to be faster on smaller and medium-sized trees, whereas PioSolver tends to be faster and converge better on larger trees. To measure accuracy, we'll be assessing how close to the Nash equilibrium each program can solve to. In PioSolver, this is measured as max exploitability, while in Simple PostFlop, this is measured as Nash distance, which to my understanding are equivalent values. For this test, we used ranges for a 6 max under the gun versus button 4-bet pot with 3-bet and 1 raise sizing on each street and an SPR of 5. For Simple PostFlop, using the A2 algorithm, after approximately 1 hour, the solver was able to reach a Nash distance of 0.001. On the other hand, PioSolver, after 2.5 hours, appeared to stall out, where exploitability actually started to increase as time went on. So it appears on its face that Simple PostFlop is able to converge closer to the equilibrium, at least with its A2 algorithm. I should note, however, that I've noticed similar stalling with Simple PostFlop when solving larger trees using its A1 algorithm. Additionally, I should also mention that I have no way of validating whether either solver's measurement of Nash distance is actually accurate. However, if we compare the solutions, we see that they are quite close, and if we browse to the river, we see that PioSolver will advise to call with some frequency in spots where it is actually negative EV, whereas in the same spot, Simple PostFlop shows the EV of both calling and folding being 0, which would justify using a mixed strategy. And finally, I tested memory compression by setting up a sim with full ranges, a 50 SPR, and 4-bet sizings and 1 raise size on each street for each player. Memory compression will be important if your PC doesn't have a lot of RAM, since all other things being equal, it will allow you to solve scenarios with more inputs, wider ranges, and higher SPRs. As we can see, this tree is way too large for my computer to solve using Pio, as it requires almost 250 gigabytes of RAM. However, using the A1 algorithm in Simple PostFlop, I was actually able to process and calculate results, although again, I can't vouch for the validity of the outputs. So taking all of that into account, considering the fact that Simple PostFlop appears to have an edge in speed for solving small to middle-sized trees, as well as in accuracy and memory compression, I would have to give it the overall nod when it comes to performance. So user interface is obviously going to be very subjective, but I will give my personal opinions on both products. I should note, however, that I've been using PioSolver for years and Simple PostFlop only for a few weeks, so my views may be skewed. Overall, I would say that both solvers have pros and cons when it comes to the interface, which I will go over one by one. When it comes to browsing data for single hands, I think PioSolver has the advantage for a number of reasons. For one, both programs have the standard 13x13 grid, but PioSolver's implementation is more user-friendly in my opinion because one, its grid is larger, easier to read, and resizable, and two, you can quickly browse each hand by simply hovering over the matrix, and the strategies and strength for each holding are displayed instantaneously in the bottom right corner. In contrast, to see the strategies and EV for a specific hand in Simple PostFlop, you need to click on the grid and then click on this box. So if you want to quickly browse this info for a number of different hands in the range, it can become a bit more cumbersome. Also, PioSolver has an advantage in giving the user the ability to browse GTO strategies for different turn and river cards instantaneously by simply clicking on the card, whereas for Simple PostFlop, by default, you need to recalculate the turn turn, and river for each different card you want to analyze, which may take a second or two. Although there is a setting which you can change which allows you to view the strategies for different turn cards instantaneously, you still need to recalculate cards for rivers. My understanding is that the reason why Simple PostFlop works this way is to provide for greater accuracy by resolving the solution to take into account actions in prior streets. Similarly, if you want to view different runouts and how that affects strategies and hand strength, PioSolver has a seamless solution for that in the hotness chart, where you can simply press Ctrl H and this chart will appear, which you can then use to browse the different runouts quickly. In contrast, for Simple PostFlop, you need to calculate the runouts for each turn and river card, which is much slower to process. Finally, PioSolver gives you the ability to compare EVs between two different actions, which is very useful if, for example, you want to simplify your strategy for your entire range between actions that produce similar EVs. As far as I know, Simple PostFlop does not have this feature. On the other hand, I think there are a number of other UI features which, in my opinion, Simple PostFlop may implement a bit better than Pio. For one, being able to see the different segments on the same screen as the grid, in my opinion, is a very useful feature. Personally, when I use PioSolver to study, I probably spend most of my time reviewing the Range Explorer, but in order to access this, you need to open up a different screen, and unlike Simple PostFlop, you aren't able to see a graphical representation of the average strategies of each segment. In Simple PostFlop, not only are you able to see the hand matrix and segments simultaneously, but you're also able to see the EV, equity, and strategies for a hand at the same time, which you cannot do in Pio, which requires you to toggle different switches in order to get this data. This feature of Simple PostFlop is particularly useful in situations where you want to see how different strategies affect the range, the segments, and individual holdings, since when you move through the tree, the impact on each of these categories is automatically shown since they all remain on one screen. Additionally, although both solvers provide node locking, I think Simple PostFlop's methodology is a bit cleaner and more intuitive, where you can go directly in the tree to lock in strategies, whereas in Pio you need to open up multiple other screens. And finally, arguably the biggest advantage Simple PostFlop has in terms of interface is the implementation of aggregated reports. PioSolver produces aggregated reports in the form of CSVs. Exporting aggregated reports this way has the advantage of being able to manipulate and share the data, but I personally prefer Simple PostFlop's reports, which allows you to further analyze a particular board by simply clicking on it, and then it will automatically appear in the browser. In contrast, in Pio, if you want to analyze a board from an aggregated report, you need to find and open each sim individually. Additionally, if you want to view reports for different nodes in the decision tree, the process is much quicker in Simple PostFlop because everything is done in the GUI, whereas in Pio you need to run a new CSV report for each node. So both products I think have pros and cons, and so the superior choice when it comes to UI is really in the eye of the beholder and depends on how you personally use the solver. However, if I had to pick one solver over the other in terms of UI, I would probably give PioSolver the slight edge due to how quickly and effortlessly you can browse single hands, which I'm guessing is where most people spend their time. The last category we're going to talk about is support, which can be very important especially for new users since there is a bit of a learning curve to understanding how to utilize these tools. In short, I think this is one area where PioSolver has a clear advantage. For one, there appear to be many more people that use PioSolver, at least here in the United States, so there is a large group of users that you can reach out to for help or to study with, and there are also a number of coaches and YouTube videos that focus on PioSolver as well. Also, the PioSolver team is very responsive to questions both on 2+2 and Discord, and they really go out of their way to provide superior customer support. On the other hand, Simple PostFlop, it appears, is more geared towards the Russian market, and there doesn't appear to be nearly as many users of the product in the United States. The Simple Poker team are responsive to questions, particularly on Discord, but there appears to be somewhat of a language barrier there. Also, there's not nearly as many learning resources out there when it comes to Simple PostFlop compared to PioSolver. So support-wise, I think the edge definitely goes to PioSolver. So overall, which solver is best? Well, I think this is a highly subjective question that is impossible to answer definitively across the board. In my opinion, both solvers have advantages and disadvantages. I would give the edge to Simple PostFlop in terms of features per dollar and performance, whereas I would give PioSolver the edge in user interface and support. That being said, if I had a gun to my head and had to give a recommendation to someone that is new to solvers, I would probably lean towards Simple PostFlop, primarily because while they are both great products and very useful studying tools, to get the same features as Simple PostFlop, you need to buy PioSolver Edge, which I think is probably cost prohibitive to most. So that's the video for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay balanced.